Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Kellen here with Droid Life. So we're taking another look today at Google's Pixel phone. And we're doing that because I've had a chance to spend most of the past few months with it as my phone that's in my pocket on my desk all day long. And so we don't often get to do this because we're jumping from one phone to the next, right? Except each year around November to the end of February of the following year, we get this break as we're leading up from holiday releases to the next wave of flagships. And so it's a time where we get to often settle into something, almost become a consumer. What's great though is that I still do this, and so then I can share some thoughts back with you, maybe just sort of a different perspective than you would normally get from one of our reviews. So let's talk about it and let's jump back into the Google Pixel. I think it's only fitting that we first jump into the stuff that I loved about the Pixel back when I reviewed it and that I still enjoy today. We're talking about things like the performance, the size, camera, and the fact that the phone is unlocked to work on all major carriers. As for the performance, this is one of those areas that Google just seems to nail over everyone. Because it's their operating system, because it's their hardware made in tandem with it, you can tell that everything plays together nicer than on most other Android phones. Sure, others are getting better, LG is an example, but Google's phones like the Pixel are just so smooth, so snappy in between apps, and rarely stutter, lock up, or slow down with days of use. I've had phones in the past that needed daily reboots. I can tell you the Pixel is certainly not one of them. On another positive note, one of the design decisions I can't thank Google enough for is the choice to go with two sizes for the Pixel. While I'm very tempted to jump onto a Pixel XL for that extra screen real estate, the regular Pixel is exactly the size of phone I want. It fits in one hand, can be used with that same hand, and is pocketable even with, your skinny jeans. The 5-inch 1080p display isn't going to make this a very good daydream VR phone, so just keep that in mind. But I'll take that if it allows me to chase my son around with a free hand while still spamming off tweets with the other. The 12 megapixel camera on the Pixel still impresses me on a regular basis too. I've mastered the double click on the power button to launch it whenever I need it. It autofocuses quickly, snaps photos that are acceptable in low light while putting out very impressive shots with good lighting. This, along with probably the Galaxy S7, is the benchmark that all smartphone makers should be aiming for. If they aren't here, it's time to give up all the gimmicks with wide angle lenses and whatever else you're throwing in and just go back to the basics. The video stabilization added to the camera is also quite good and has actually tempted me to shoot more video with a phone than I ever have before. I don't know how many of you have seen the magic this can create, but it's cool enough even to show your friends at parties. And finally, because I live in a world where I constantly switch between carriers as I'm testing a new phone or traveling and need to access the best network, the Pixel works for me because it works on all of the major US carriers. I typically rely on T-Mobile in Portland, but should I head back home to Montana or elsewhere, I know it'll take a Verizon or AT&T SIM without needing much work. Of course, I still have some complaints, like the fact that the design is pretty boring and it doesn't have much in the water resistance department, but I've also already run into storage or lack thereof and haven't exactly been impressed by the charging speeds of Google's rapid charging. So yeah, the design is still pretty meh and isn't doing much for me. The back patch has grown on me some, probably because it helps it look less like the iPhone clone that it is. Other than that, this isn't a phone that's doing anything new in terms of looks. I think we can all agree that the Pixel phones look like unused HTC One A9 shells with a new back glass panel that was sold to Google at a discount and doesn't fit properly. I know I'm hating extra hard, but come on, we've seen this phone design at least 4 or 5 dozen times in recent years. I can't wait for the next Pixel when Google has time to work their own design instead of relying on leftover scraps from a last-minute manufacturer change. About the storage though, I can tell you right now that 32 gigabytes isn't enough in 2016 or 2017. I've had to clean up my storage twice already, and I've had the phone for all of 3 months? That's not a good sign knowing there isn't an SD card slot and that my kid is probably going to keep downloading all sorts of massive games that take up space. I clearly should have gone for the 128 gig model, as you should too. And not to keep beating on this lack of water resistance, but it's hard not to mention the fact that 3 months in, I'm still worried about where I set the Pixel. With the Galaxy S7, the phone I used for most of 2016, I never worried about that sort of thing unless I thought it might scratch the phone's backside because it was all glass. But with the liquids around, I knew my S7 was up for the challenge, whereas the Pixel isn't about that life. And lastly, my only other real nitpick is the rapid charging on the Pixel. I just don't find it to be all that fast, even if I'm using one of the many Google-made Type-C chargers I have lying around the house. Maybe it's because I'm spoiled after using the OnePlus 3T. Actually, yeah, that's exactly it. The OnePlus 3T charges so insanely fast while not heating up. I wish they would put the tech they use up for licensing, because I want every OEM to get in on this action. The Pixel doesn't charge slow by any means, but I just feel like every other charge either isn't that fast or adds unnecessary heat to the body. And so that's the Google Pixel one last time. I think it's easy to say that this is still a recommendation, even with all of those phones that we know are on the horizon in the next month or so. It still has one of the best camera experiences you'll find, has probably the best, cleanest version of Android, at least in my opinion, and you get updates all of the time when you're supposed to. So while I would recommend you skip the 32 gig version and splurge for that 128 gig option, I just can't imagine everyone's not going to enjoy this phone.